I woke up in the five-bedroom house, but every room was empty. They flew to Hawaii and left me. Even though I had paid $2,000 a month for 4 years, I called the movers, then I called my lawyer, then I called it over. They thought I would cry. I chose receipts, hard drives, and a plan. That Christmas Eve was the last night I lived for others, and the first night I lived for myself. My name is Gianna Anderson. I'm 28 years old, and I'm a data scientist at Northstone Meridian, a private bank in Grayford that manages the money of people who have never had to worry about it. My job is to build models that predict risk. I quantify the unquantifiable. I look at a complex system of human behavior, economic indicators, and market volatility, and I reduce it to a single, actionable number. I am very good at my job. I am good at it because I apply the same principles to my own life. I am a person of meticulous discipline. In a fire, I would grab my laptop and a specific accordion file folder. This folder contains every major receipt, every warranty card, and every serial number for every significant purchase I have made in the last 7 years. My salary is stable, but it is not lavish. It does not allow for waste. I track my expenditures down to the cent. I do not believe in ambiguity. I believe in proof. My family, however, operates entirely on ambiguity. We live in a 5-bedroom house in Riverbend Heights, a neighborhood built 15 years ago on the promise of community and growth. My parents, Victor and Elaine, bought it at the peak of their optimism. Now, those 5 bedrooms represent 5 distinct liabilities. There is my father, Victor, a man whose career peaked a decade ago and has been in a quiet, gravitational slide ever since. There is my mother, Elaine, a woman who weaponizes guilt as her primary form of currency. There is my older brother, Bryce, 32 years old, the failed prodigy. There is my younger sister, Tessa, 23, the designated princess, and my youngest brother, Nolan, 21, who has made an art form of blending into the wallpaper. Then there is me, the 5th bedroom, the utility. 4 years ago, the quiet slide of my father's career became an avalanche. He was not fired. He was restructured, demoted. His salary was cut almost in half. The panic was immediate and palpable. Elaine called a family meeting, which meant everyone was summoned to the living room to be held emotionally hostage. "We will lose this house," she announced, her voice trembling. It was a masterful performance. After all the memories, after everything. Victor just stared at the blank television screen. His shoulders slumped. The solution, of course, was me. I was 24. I had just been confirmed in my role at Northstone Meridian. I was the only one with a real salary and a future that did not look like a dead end. "Gianna," my father said, finally looking at me. "Just for a little while, just until I can sort things out. We just need some help with the mortgage," Elaine clarified, honing in. $2,000 a month, just temporary, to keep us afloat. $2,000. It was a staggering amount, nearly half of my take-home pay at the time. But I looked at the house, I looked at my parents. I was the good daughter, the responsible one. "Okay," I said. "Temporary." Temporary became a meaningless word. 4 years is 48 months, 48 transfers of $2,000. The total, as of this month, is $96,000. I have a spreadsheet for it. Each transaction is dated and categorized. $96,000 to prop up a failing enterprise. $96,000 of my money, my savings, my potential investments, gone. Poured into the mortgage of a house where I still lived in my childhood bedroom, complete with the faded glow-in-the-dark stars I stuck on the ceiling when I was 9, while I subsidized their lives. My siblings consumed. Bryce, at 32, is a black hole of entitlement. 2 years ago, he convinced our parents that he was the next Mark Zuckerberg. He had a vision for a revolutionary social AI platform. All he needed was seed money. My parents, desperate for a winning ticket, liquidated $65,000 in bonds money they should have been hoarding for retirement. Bryce's startup burned through that cash in 6 months. It never launched. There was no product. There was just a rented co-working space, a lot of jargon about synergy and disruption, and an astronomical bill for server space. Now, Bryce lives in the room above the garage. He sleeps until noon. The only sound that comes from his room is the rapid, angry click-clack of a mechanical keyboard as he plays video games. He claims he is networking and waiting for the right opportunity. He has not had a job in 3 years. His contribution to the household is 0. His drain is absolute. Then there is Tessa. She is 23. She is currently attending Northfield Private College, a school where the landscaping budget alone could probably solve world hunger. Her tuition is $35,000 a year. My parents pay for all of it. They pay for her sorority dues, her meal plan, her spring break trips. She has never been asked to get a job. It would, according to my mother, distract from her studies and the college experience. I remember my college experience. State University. I worked 30 hours a week as a waitress to cover my books and my food. I took out loans, which I paid off myself, systematically, in the first 2 years after graduation. When I see Tessa's photos on social media, captioned, "Living my best life," I do not feel sisterly pride. I feel the cold, hard click of an abacus in my brain. The only outlier is Nolan. He is 21, attending the local community college and working part-time at a bookstore. He is quiet to the point of invisibility. He is the only one, besides me, who contributes. Every so often, I will see a $100 bill left on the kitchen counter, earmarked for groceries. It is a drop in the ocean, but it is not nothing. He is the only one who looks away when I am at my laptop on the 1st of the month, scheduling the transfer. For everyone else, my sacrifice is not a sacrifice. It is the status quo. It is an entitlement. My $2,000 is no longer a temporary help. It is my share, the heaviest share. It is simply expected, like the sun rising. No one ever says thank you. When the old refrigerator died last year, I bought a new 2-door smart model. I found a floor model, saved 15%, and filed the warranty under my name. My mother's only comment was that the ice dispenser was slower than the old one. When Bryce complained that the internet was lagging during his peak networking hours, I upgraded our plan and bought a new mesh router system. I registered the hardware to my personal account. Bryce's feedback. The new signal was interfering with his wireless headset's Bluetooth. The injustice of it all has been simmering for a long time. It is not a hot, explosive anger. It is a cold, dense mass in my chest. It is the feeling of being systematically looted. I am a data scientist. I analyze failing systems. This family is a non-performing asset. I close my laptop. I open the accordion file. I review the receipts. The serial number for the 75-inch television in the living room. The warranty for the high-efficiency washer and dryer. The proof of purchase for the smart home system I installed myself. The paperwork is clean. The data is absolute. The ledgers do not care about family or obligation. The ledgers do not lie. It was the silence that woke me. December 24th. Should not be silent. In this house, it was constitutionally incapable of silence. For the last 15 years, this specific morning began at 5 a.m. with the heavy thud of a 20-pound turkey hitting the kitchen counter, followed by the clanging of the roasting pan. My mother, Elaine, insisted on this ritual. By 7, the smell of sage and roasting poultry would fill every room. By 8, my father, Victor, would be in the living room, the television blaring the national news at a volume that suggested he was testing the structural integrity of the drywall. I sat up in bed. It was 8:30. The air was still and cold. There was no smell of sage. There was no muffled drone of the news. The silence was absolute. It was a heavy, weighted blanket pressing down on the house. It was not peace. It was an absence. I got out of bed, pulling on a robe. The floorboards in the hall did not creak. Or maybe they did. But the sound was sharp and singular, not lost in the usual domestic static. I checked Nolan's room first. Next to mine, empty, the bed was made. Not just sheets pulled up made, but military corner, inspection ready made. A thin layer of dust covered his desk. He had not slept here last night. I crossed the hall to Tessa's room. The door was ajar, empty, her vanity, usually an explosion of cosmetics and brushes, was wiped clean. A few stray cotton swabs lay in the trash bin. I opened her closet. It was decimated. All her expensive shoes, the ones I knew my parents could not afford, were gone. Her sorority sweatshirts, her formal dresses, her luggage all gone. All that remained were a few pairs of old sneakers and a high school prom dress I think she despised. Bryce's room, the converted attic space above the garage, was next. I climbed the stairs. The room was empty. The perpetual fug of stale energy drinks and body odor remained. But the source was gone. His 3-monitor gaming rig was still on the desk. But the tower, the expensive graphics card, the actual brain of his operation, was missing. His gaming chair was empty. His favorite, $1,000 noise-canceling headset, the one he wore even at the dinner table, was gone. My heart was beating a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. This was not a last-minute shopping trip. This was an evacuation. I went downstairs. The kitchen was sterile. The countertops were clear. The roasting pan was dry in the dish rack. The refrigerator, the $3,000 smart model I bought last year, hummed in the silence. I opened it. It was nearly empty. A half-empty jar of pickles, a bottle of ketchup, and the bottle of white wine I had been saving. My wine. The living room was dark. The 75-inch television, my television, was a black mirror reflecting the empty room. My father's recliner was empty. I went to the garage. I hit the button for the main door. The mechanism groaned, painfully loud in the quiet, and the door rattled up. My practical, paid-for sedan sat on the left. The space on the right, where my parents' 7-seater SUV always sat, was empty. A dark oil stain marked the spot. I pulled out my phone. My hands were perfectly steady. This was not panic. This was data collection. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. I called Bryce. Straight to voicemail. I called Tessa. Straight to voicemail. The cold was starting in my stomach now. I thought of Nolan. I called him. Straight to voicemail. This was coordinated. This was deliberate. I opened my messaging app. We have a family group chat. It is mostly my mother posting blurry photos and Tessa posting links to her sorority's fundraisers. My last message in the chat was from 2 days ago, asking who wanted me to pick up eggnog. No one had replied. I typed a new message. The house is empty. Is everything okay? I pressed send. A small, gray notification appeared at the bottom of the screen. It was not a delivery failure. It was a statement. You are no longer a member of this group. I read the words 3 times. You are no longer a member. They had not just left. They had excommunicated me. They had digitally, officially, scrubbed me from the roster. My breath hitched. It was a small, involuntary gasp. I was not just left behind. I was being erased. I needed external verification. My mind cycled through relatives. Most of them lived out of state, but there was one, my father's younger brother, my Uncle Doug. He lived 2 towns over. He was the fun uncle, the one who still thought my father was a big shot and enabled all his worst instincts. I dialed his number. He always answered, eager for gossip. He picked up on the 3rd ring. The sound that hit my ear was not the sound of a quiet suburban morning in Grayford. It was a wall of noise. It was music, a ukulele, distinctly, and the sound of wind, and something that sounded like ocean waves. Dougie, Merry Christmas Eve. He screamed over the din. My blood turned to ice. Uncle Doug, where are you? I woke up and the house is empty. Everyone is gone. There was a muffled sound as he covered the receiver. I could hear him yelling, his voice faint but clear. Vic, hey. Victor, it's Gianna. She's on the phone. She says the house is empty. I heard my father's voice. I would know that annoyed, impatient tone anywhere. What? Oh, God. Tell her we tried to call. Tell her the reception is bad. We tried to call. A clean, simple lie. My call log was a blank slate. Doug came back on the line, his voice dripping with forced sympathy. Gianna, hey. Kiddo. Yeah. What a bummer. We tried calling you, but the reception out here is just awful. Where is out here, Doug? I asked. My voice was monotone. Hawaii. Can you believe it? Elaine booked the whole thing, a huge surprise for their 35th anniversary, the whole family. We've got 2 connecting suites at the Kahala Resort. It's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. The whole family. I looked around the empty, cold living room. I see, I said. Yeah, Doug barreled on, completely oblivious. Elaine was so bummed you couldn't make it. She said you were just buried at the bank. Had to work right through the holiday. She said I had to work. She said, Doug continued, his voice lowering slightly, that you insisted on staying back to, hold down the fort and make money for the family. Real stand-up move, kiddo. Very responsible of you. Make money for the family. The phrase echoed in the empty room. My check for $2,000 had cleared on the 1st of December, as it had every month for 4 years. $96,000. Then, the final piece of data slotted into place. A high-pitched, familiar laugh erupted near Doug's phone. It was Tessa. Is that Gianna? She yelled. I could picture her perfectly, tanned and holding a cocktail. Oh my God. Uncle Doug, tell her not to forget to water Mom's stupid ficus in the living room. The poor thing looked half dead yesterday. Another voice, my mother's, shushing her. Tessa. Shh. Give him the phone. He'll drain the battery. Tessa laughed again. What? The plan was always for her to stay home and house sit. Someone had to. Besides, she needs to douse the plants before they die. The line clicked. He had hung up, or my mother had hung up for him. I stood in the center of the kitchen. The silence was back. But it was different now. It was no longer an absence. It was an answer. The plan was always for her to stay home. The cold that had been in my stomach now filled my entire body. It was a sharp, clarifying cold. It was the absolute, sterile purity of a hypothesis confirmed. They had not forgotten me. They had not mistakenly assumed I was working. They had planned this. They had used my money. The money I paid to keep this very roof over their heads, to fund a luxury vacation for 5, while intentionally leaving me behind as the unpaid help. I looked at the ficus tree by the window. It was, in fact, drooping. I did not cry. Crying is a subjective response to emotional stimuli. This was not an emotional event. This was a financial audit. It was the discovery of gross mismanagement and fraud. I turned, walked up the stairs to my room, and retrieved my work laptop. I brought it downstairs to the dining room table. I also retrieved my accordion file, the one with every receipt, every warranty, every serial number. I sat down. I opened a new file. Not a word processor, a fresh Excel spreadsheet. I spent the rest of Christmas Eve in silence. I did not turn on the television. I did not listen to music. I just worked, my fingers flying across the keys. Column A, item description. Column B, purchase date. Column C, cost. Column D, serial number. Column E, registered owner. G, Anderson. The sun went down. The neighborhood glittered with festive lights. My house remained a black rectangle, a void in the middle of the cheer. Around 7 p.m., I was hungry. The kitchen, the expired pasta sauce, the box of spaghetti, the bottle of wine I had bought for myself. I boiled the water. I cooked the pasta. I ate the bland, metallic-tasting sauce directly from the pot, standing over the stove. I drank my wine from a coffee mug. Then I went to the living room. I sat on the sofa I did not own and turned on the 75-inch television that I did. I put on a marathon of cheesy saccharine Christmas movies. The ones where dysfunctional families realize that love is the only thing that matters. On the cushion next to me, my laptop glowed. The spreadsheet was nearly complete. The washer, the dryer, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the microwave, the coffee machine, the mesh Wi-Fi system, the smart home hub that controlled the lights they could not turn on, the video doorbell that was currently recording an empty porch. All of it, mine, all of it, documented. They thought I was the mule. They thought I was the house sitter. They thought I was the daughter who would cry, who would be waiting here with a hot meal when they returned, tanned and rested. They had made a critical error in their risk assessment. They forgot what I do for a living. My decision was made. It was not emotional. It was not flight. It was a calculated, strategic withdrawal of assets from a non-performing, deeply toxic portfolio. I was not running away. I was liquidating. On the morning of December 25th, I woke up on the couch to the sound of a fake television snowstorm. The marathon was still running. The house was cold. The pasta pot from last night was still on the stove. I felt no hangover, only a profound, crystalline clarity. My Excel spreadsheet was glowing on the laptop screen next to me. My first call was not to a lawyer, it was to Harper Lane. Harper and I had been roommates at State College. She was the one who taught me how to budget. Now, she managed a portfolio of high-end rental properties in the city. She was practical, unsentimental, and she despised my family. I called her personal cell. Gianna. Her voice was crisp. Merry Christmas. This is a weird time for you to call. Merry Christmas. Harper, I need a place. Today. There was a half-second pause. How big? For how long? And how much trouble are you in? 2 bedrooms, a year, maybe longer, and the trouble is just starting. I need it clean, secure, and I need the address to be unlisted if possible. I'm leaving my family. It's about damn time, she said, without missing a beat. I've got a unit in Riverside Key, corner apartment, 2-bed, 2-bath, great light. Tenant was a consultant who got transferred to Singapore. It's empty. It's yours if you want it. The building is secure. Concierge, key fob access. Riverside Key? That's expensive. It's within your salary. I know what you make. Remember? And I'll waive the broker fee as a Christmas present. I'm sending you the photos and the e-lease right now. Send me back your financials. I'll have the lease countersigned by 3 p.m. My phone buzzed. The photos were exactly as she said. Bright, clean, impersonal. Pale hardwood floors. Large windows overlooking the river. A modern kitchen with appliances that were not mine. It was perfect. It was anonymous. I sat at the dining room table, the ghost of Christmas dinners past, and emailed her my pay stubs and my spotless credit report. By 2:45 p.m. on Christmas Day, I had a signed electronic lease for a new life. My move-in date was listed as December 26th. With my new address secured, I turned to the physical logistics. My spreadsheet was my guide. This was phase 2, marshalling the evidence. I went to my office and pulled the accordion file. I cross-referenced every item on my assets for removal list with its physical proof of purchase. 1. The 75-inch smart television in the living room, Bryce's constant companion, my Best Buy receipt, digital and paper, my credit card statement showing the charge. 2. The high-efficiency washer and dryer set in the laundry room, my mother's workhorses, my Home Depot order confirmation email, printed, the extended warranty, registered in my name, with my email and my phone number. 3. The stainless steel microwave, the smart dishwasher, the 2-door smart refrigerator with the water dispenser, all purchased during a kitchen renovation 3 years ago that my parents managed and I financed. I had the serial numbers for all 3, logged in a separate tab. The master receipt from the appliance store was filed under A for the $1,000 espresso machine, my mother's one luxury, a birthday gift from me 2 years prior. The invoice from Williams-Sonoma was attached to the warranty card. 5. The digital infrastructure, the mesh Wi-Fi router system, the smart home hub, the video doorbell camera, all purchased through my Amazon account, all registered to me. I spent 2 hours printing, 3-hole punching, and organizing. I created a new 1-inch white binder. The first section was proof of ownership, with clear tabs for each item. The second section was financial contributions. I logged into my Northstone Meridian bank account. I set the transaction filter. Recipient Grayford Home Mortgage. Start date 4 years ago. End date today. 48 transactions, $2,000 each. A clean, undeniable column of transfers. The total at the bottom, $96,000. I exported the entire history as a PDF and printed it. I added the bank statements showing the corresponding withdrawals. $96,000 in direct mortgage payments. Not rent, not help, mortgage payments. I created a third file on my laptop. This one purely operational. It was a checklist for the movers. 1. Disconnect 75-inch television from wall mount. Pack television, leave wall mount. 2. Disconnect water line and power for smart refrigerator. 3. Disconnect water lines and exhaust vent for washer and dryer. 4. Disconnect dishwasher. 5. Pack all small appliances coffee machine, microwave, router nodes. 6. Locate and disconnect central smart home hub located in the basement utility closet. This last one was critical. Disconnecting the individual smart plugs and light bulbs was pointless. Taking the hub, the brain that coordinated everything, would render the entire system inert. The house would revert to a dumb house. Its light switches suddenly, just light switches again. My next call was to a moving company. I searched for emergency and holiday services. I found a local company, On Time Movers, whose website promised 24/7 365 service. The dispatcher who answered sounded tired. "You need a move on the day after Christmas," he asked, skeptical. "That's a premium, lady, double rate." "I'll pay it," I said. "I also need a certificate of insurance, and your crew needs to be bonded. I have a precise inventory of high-value electronics. I need a 3-man crew and one 26-foot truck, 8 a.m., sharp. The pickup address is in Riverbend Heights. The drop-off is in Riverside Key." The premium was steep. I paid the deposit over the phone with my credit card. It was done, booked, 8 a.m., December 26th. I walked through the silent house, my phone in my hand. I was not taking pictures of memories. I was documenting the before state. I took high-resolution photos of the walls behind the television, the floor under the refrigerator, the plumbing connections for the washer. Any potential claim of damage, of scratches, of leaks, would be met with time-stamped metadata. My final steps were for containment. I knew what would happen when they returned. The explosion of calls, the accusations, the demands. I had a spare, pay-as-you-go SIM card in my desk drawer from an old work project. I activated it. I paid for 3 months of service. This would be my new number. I would port my old number to this new SIM later. For now, my current phone, the one they all knew, would become a data trap. I would turn off the ringer, but I would let the voicemails and texts accumulate. They would be evidence. I logged into my accounts for the gas, the electric, and the water. All 3 were in my name. I had set them up when I moved back from college. The responsible daughter organizing the household. I scheduled the service termination, the date December 26th, the time 12 p.m., when I estimated the truck would be pulling away. Then, the most important one, the internet service, also in my name, also paid by me, Bryce's lifeline, Tessa's connection, my parents' streaming. I scheduled the cancellation for the same time. Finally, I filed the change of address forms with the post office and my bank. Every piece of mail, every statement, every financial tie was now rerouted to the anonymous security of Riverside Key. I finished at 11 p.m. Christmas Day was over. I had not opened a single present. I had not eaten a festive meal. I had built a legal and logistical fortress. I had a lease, a moving crew, a binder full of evidence, and an exit plan. I shut my laptop. I went to my room, the one with the glowing stars on the ceiling, and I set my alarm for 6 a.m. It would be the last time I ever slept there. At 8 a.m. on December 26th, the air brakes of a 26-foot moving truck hissed outside the house. I was waiting by the door. My own car was already packed with my clothes, my laptop, and the vital accordion file. A man with a clipboard and a heavy coat stepped out. "Ms. Anderson, the holiday emergency." "I am," I said. I handed him the white binder I had prepared. "This is a folder of my credentials and proof of ownership for every major item on the inventory list. Serial numbers are included. This is a non-confrontational asset removal. I am the sole owner of these items. Your crew will not be involved in any domestic dispute. He flipped through the first few pages, the receipts, the warranties. He was a professional. His expression did not change. Understood. Ma'am, where do we start? The living room, the television. The three-man crew was efficient. They entered the room, and I pointed. That one. They unclipped the multiple HDMI cables Bryce had snaked across the floor from his abandoned gaming consoles. With a coordinated lift, they unhooked the 75-inch screen from its wall mount. The click of the mechanism releasing was the only sound. They swaddled it in heavy-duty moving blankets, taped it secure, and carried it out. The mount remained on the wall, a useless metal cross. Bryce's primary window to the world was now in the back of a truck. The laundry room, I directed. They unhooked the hot and cold water lines from the high-efficiency washer and detached the dryer's exhaust vent. My mother had used this set daily, the steam cycle her favorite feature. They used a heavy-duty dolly, and the machines rumbled over the threshold, leaving two clean, square outlines on the dusty floor. They were returning to their registered owner. The kitchen, this was the main event. The microwave, the dishwasher, and the refrigerator. The microwave was simple, unplugged, lifted, gone. The dishwasher required more effort, the men sliding it out from under the granite countertop with a low metallic groan. Then, the $3,000 smart refrigerator. The crew chief paused. This is usually a fixture, ma'am. Check tab 3 in the binder, I said. The purchase receipt and the warranty are in my name. The plumbing for the ice maker is flexible. Before they moved it, I opened the door. The interior light came on, illuminating the half-empty jar of pickles. I took my phone, leaned in, and snapped a high-resolution photo of the serial number plaque inside the door. The metadata would record the time 8:47 a.m. Proceed. They rolled it out. The space it left was a pale rectangle on the hardwood, a floor that had not seen sunlight in 3 years. They wrapped it. I watched them load it onto the hydraulic lift. The counter, I said, pointing to the $1,000 espresso machine, my mother's birthday gift, the best in her life. I had saved the original packaging. I boxed it myself, fitting the machine into the custom styrofoam, and taped the box shut. I wrote, Fragile, G. Anderson, on the side. Finally, the infrastructure. I led them to the utility closet in the basement. I pointed to the small white box mounted to the plywood, the smart home hub. Disconnect it. One man unplugged it. The small blue status light winked out. In that instant, the house went dumb. The smart switches were now just plastic. The video doorbell, my video doorbell, went offline. I walked through the house, unplugging the mesh router nodes one by one. I gathered the smart speakers, the smart plugs, even the smart light bulbs from the entryway. I placed them all in a box labeled Systems. The house was analog. It was just a box, cold and silent. By 10:30 a.m., the truck was full. My personal items were in my sedan. The house was a hollow shell, echoing with the ghosts of appliances. The crew chief handed me the final manifest. That's everything on your list, ma'am. We'll meet you at the drop-off. I signed the paper. I paid the double-rate holiday fee and added a $200 tip. Thank you for your speed. Just a job, he said. Good luck. The truck pulled away. I did one final walkthrough. I went to the kitchen counter, where the espresso machine had been. I left 2 things. First, I left the single list of utilities, a clean printed sheet, gas, electric, water, internet, all accounts in the name of Gianna Anderson, all scheduled for termination at 12 p.m. Second, I took the front door key off my ring, the simple, brass deadbolt key. I walked outside, placed it under the pot of my mother's dying ficus tree, just as Tessa had inadvertently instructed. I did not lock the door. I got in my car and pulled out of the driveway, never once looking in the rearview mirror. I arrived at Riverside Key 20 minutes before the truck. The concierge, a man in a sharp blazer, greeted me by name. Ms. Anderson, a pleasure to have you. Harper Lane forwarded all your paperwork. We just need your signature and the deposit. I signed the handover acceptance. I gave him a certified check for 3 months' rent, plus the security deposit. drawn from an account that was, for the first time, entirely my own. He handed me 2 programmed key fobs. The movers arrived. The 20th floor apartment was clean, bright, and smelled of new paint. The view was a panoramic sweep of the Grayford River. They moved every item in. The refrigerator looked better in the new kitchen. The television was mounted on a clean, white wall. By 4 p.m., they were gone. I stood in the center of my new living room. The silence here was different. It was not an absence. It was a presence. It was mine. I unpacked the box labeled Systems. I plugged in the router. I created a new secure Wi-Fi network. The password was 16 characters of random letters and numbers. I set up the smart hub. I methodically, one by one, re-registered every device to the new location. My television, my lights, my speakers. I logged into all my primary accounts: banking, email, credit bureaus. I changed every single password. I linked them all to the new, anonymous SIM card I had installed in my phone. My old phone was now powered down and locked in my car's glove box. The sun set, painting the river orange. I sat on the floor and ate Thai food from a plastic container. My phone did not ring. No one needed anything. No alerts for upcoming bills. No passive-aggressive texts. I went to bed in a room that was mine, in a building that was secure, in a life that was finally, fully, funded and owned by me that night. For the first time in 1,461 days, I slept soundly, and I did not dream. For 6 days, my new life was silent. I went to work. I came home. I bought a new coffee machine, a simple one. I organized my kitchen. I sat on my new sofa, which I had ordered online, and I read a book. The silence was deep and foundational. It was the sound of my own life, uninterrupted. On the 7th day, which was New Year's Eve, my new phone buzzed. It was not a call. It was a push notification from an application I had intentionally left active. The app for the video doorbell at the Riverbend Heights house. The doorbell I had purchased, installed, and registered to my account, and which I had strategically left behind. The internet, which I had canceled, must have been restored by them. The doorbell had reconnected to a new network. The alert was simple, motion detected. I put down my book. I opened the app. The feed flickered, pixelated, and then snapped into sharp focus. The timestamp read 3:45 p.m. They were home. I watched them, a silent movie playing in the palm of my hand. They were tanned, their faces peeling slightly. My mother's hair was lighter. They were pulling brightly colored, overstuffed suitcases up the walkway. The sound was off, but I could see the motion. I saw Tessa complain, gesturing to her bag. I saw Bryce heave it up the single step. I saw my father, Victor, fumbling for his keys. He unlocked the door. My mother, Elaine, walked in first. I saw her hand reach for the light switch in the entryway. She flipped it. The feed, illuminated only by the gray afternoon light, remained dark. I watched her flip it again, and again. I saw her mouth form a word. I saw her turn and yell at my father. He entered, gesturing wildly. He tried the switch. Nothing. Elaine stormed deeper into the house, out of my camera's view. Victor followed. Tessa and Nolan remained on the porch, surrounded by luggage, looking confused. 5 minutes passed. The camera recorded the empty porch. Then, my father reappeared. He was holding his cell phone to his ear, pacing the walkway. He looked furious. He was shouting into the phone. I did not need audio. I knew exactly who he was calling. He was calling the Grayford Electric Company, and they were telling him that the account in the name of Gianna Anderson had been closed 6 days prior. Elaine appeared at the door. She was frantic. She was pointing at the kitchen, then at the living room. She was making sweeping, angry gestures. Bryce pushed past her. He was the tech guy. He was going to fix it. He disappeared. A moment later, the feed flickered again. The connection strengthened. He must have used his phone's hotspot to get the router online, wondering why the main connection was dead. He reappeared, his laptop open. He sat on the porch step. He was accessing the router's admin panel. Then he stopped, I saw his face tighten. He was looking directly at the camera lens. He knew this device was registered to me. He knew I could be watching. I watched him open a new window. He was logging into the camera's web portal. He was checking the event history. I had saved one clip. I had tagged it, scheduled maintenance. I watched, in my silent apartment, as my brother, sitting on the cold porch of a dark house, viewed the footage from 8 a.m. on December 26th. He watched the clear, high-definition recording of the moving truck. He watched the crew chief review my binder. He watched them, one by one, professionally remove the television, the refrigerator, the washer, the dryer. He watched me sign the manifest and drive away. I saw him slowly close the laptop. He stood up and walked inside, carrying the news. My new phone remained silent, but my old phone, the decoy, which I had retrieved from my car and plugged into a charger in my new spare room, began to vibrate. It vibrated once, a text, then again, then it began to ring. A frantic, buzzing shriek that did not stop. It rang, went to voicemail, and immediately rang again. I let it go. I watched the screen light up with the notifications. Mom. 8 missed calls. Dad, 5 missed calls. Tessa. What did you do? Tessa. The TV is gone. Tessa. Are you insane? Bryce, call me. Now. Mom. Voicemail. Gianna. You answer me right now. What is this? What have you done to this house? This is theft. I am calling the police. I sat on my sofa. I turned the ringer on the old phone to silent. I watched the screen light up, over and over, a strobe light of their panic, until the battery, fully charged, began to drain again. The barrage continued until after midnight. Then, silence. They had given up for the night. The next morning, New Year's Day, the calls began again at 7 a.m., sharp. They were organized now. This was a new strategy. They called, back to back, from 7 until 9. My old phone registered 64 missed calls. At 9:01, I picked it up. I answered. The sound that came through the speaker was not a human voice. It was a raw, compressed shriek of pure rage. It was my mother. You, she screamed. You criminal. You betrayed us. You stole from us. You stole everything. I held the phone 6 inches from my ear. I waited for her to take a breath. I took my property, I said. My voice was calm. Your property. Your property. That was the family's refrigerator. That was our television. You left us in the dark. There is no power, no water. The utilities were in my name. I am no longer living there. So I terminated the accounts. You are perfectly capable of setting them up in your own name. Mom. How could you? She wailed. After everything we did for you, we gave you a home. I paid $96,000 for that home, I replied. I am done paying. This conversation is over. No. No. You tell me where you are. You bring back our things. You bring them back right now. Gianna, or I swear to God, I will have you arrested. I paused. The trap was set. You want my address? Yes, she shrieked. Give it to me. We are coming to get our things. Fine, I said. I gave her the address to my new, secure building in Riverside Key. I will be here, but I suggest you do not come alone if you want to discuss this. Let's do it in front of the proper authorities. Please, bring the police. I insist. I hung up. I went to my desk. I retrieved the white binder. I made myself a cup of coffee with my new, simple machine, and I waited. It took 1 hour. My new building's intercom buzzed. I pressed the talk button. Yes, the concierge's voice was professional, but tinged with stress. Ms. Anderson, good morning. There is a situation in the lobby. Your family is here, and they are, accompanied by 2 officers from the Grayford Police Department. Thank you. David, I said. Please send the officers to my apartment. My family is to wait in the lobby. They are insistent, he said. I am sure they are, I said. Send the officers up. Unit 2005. I waited. I heard the elevator ding. I looked through the peephole. The 2 officers were there, looking awkward, and predictably, my entire family had ignored the concierge and ridden up with them. Elaine, Victor, Bryce, and Tessa. Nolan was not with them. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door exactly wide enough for one person to enter. I looked past my fuming family and addressed the taller of the two officers. "Officers, thank you for coming. Please come in." "Ma'am, your family." "My family is not invited. They are the ones who called you. You may come in. They must wait in the hall." Elaine tried to push past. "Gianna, you will not do this. Tell them." I put my hand flat on the door, blocking her. "Officers, in," the police, sensing this was not a standard call, stepped inside. I closed the door on my family. The sound of their shouting, muffled, began immediately in the hallway. "Ma'am," the taller officer began, "your mother is claiming you stole over $10,000 worth of electronics and appliances from her home." "That is correct," I said. "Please, sit at the table." They sat. I placed the white, 1-inch binder on the table between them. "This is a civil matter. Officers, my family is using you to harass me. I assure you, no crime has been committed." I opened the binder. Tab 1, you will find the proof of purchase for the 75-inch television, serial number matching. Tab 2, the receipt and extended warranty for the refrigerator, also in my name. Tab 3, the washer and dryer. Tab 4, the kitchen appliances, all purchased by me, on my credit cards, registered to my name. I flipped to the back. Section 2. Here you will find my bank statements, documenting 48 consecutive months of $2,000 payments from my personal account to the mortgage holder for that house, a total of $96,000. I was not a renter. I was the primary financier of a property I have now chosen to leave. The officers were silent. They read the documents. They looked at the bank statements. The younger one looked at the older one and shook his head slightly. The banging on the door started. "Gianna, open this door. Tell them." The taller officer stood up. He walked to the door and opened it. My family nearly fell in. "Ma'am," he said to my mother, "we are done here." "Are you arresting her?" Tessa demanded, filming with her phone. "We are not," the officer said, his voice flat. "Based on the documentation provided by Ms. Anderson, there is zero evidence of theft. She has provided clear proof of ownership for every item she claims. This is a domestic financial dispute. It is a civil matter. You need to take it to court. Do not call 911 for this again." But, Victor stammered. "It's our house." "But it's her property, sir," the officer said. He turned to me. He handed me his business card. "Ms. Anderson, you are in your own residence. If these individuals refuse to leave, or if they harass you further, you call us. We will handle them." "Thank you, officer," I said. They left. My family stood in the hallway, stunned, their faces a mask of disbelief and rage. I looked at my mother. I looked at my father. I looked at Bryce and Tessa. Then I closed the door. I engaged the deadbolt. The click was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Through the solid wood of my new door, the tone of the confrontation shifted. The rage had failed. So the performance began. My mother's shouting dissolved into heavy, theatrical sobs. They were loud, designed to penetrate the hallway, to shame me in front of my new, unknown neighbors. "After all I did for her," Elaine wailed, "I gave her life. This is how she repays me. She leaves her family homeless and in the dark. She's a monster." Then, my father's voice, attempting a different tactic, the deep, reasonable patriarch. He knocked, a firm, paternal thump, thump, thump. "Gianna, enough of this. This has gone too far. Your mother is hysterical. You have made your point. Now, be a daughter. Open this door. We will drive you back to the house, and we will talk this through properly. This is your family. You have a duty." Duty. The word he used when he meant obligation. The word he used when he meant free money. I did not open the door. I did not even look through the peephole. I stood in my silent, empty entryway, I waited. "Gianna," he boomed, his patience cracking. "Did you hear me? You are a part of this family, and you will contribute. You will not abandon us." I leaned forward, my mouth close to the wood. I spoke clearly, not shouting, but with absolute finality. My voice cut through his bluster and her sobs. "I am no longer contributing, as of today. I am stopping the $2,000 mortgage payments." Silence. The sobbing stopped, cut off mid-gasp. The paternal reasoning vanished. I could feel the cold, financial shock radiating through the door. This was the blow they had not anticipated. They thought this was about appliances. They thought this was a tantrum. They did not realize this was a foreclosure. I heard my father take a step back. I heard him mutter a curse. I turned the deadbolt. The click echoed into the hallway. Then I walked away from the door and did not look back. The next few weeks were a new kind of battle. The direct assault had failed, so they launched the indirect campaign. The calls started, not from them, but from the extended family. My phone, the new one, would ring with numbers I had not dialed in years. First, Aunt Carol. "Gianna, honey, it's your auntie. I heard what's going on, and I know you're upset, but your mother is just beside herself. Family is about helping each other. You know that. We all have to pitch in." I said nothing. "Are you there? Honey, it's just, you have to forgive. That's what families do. You can't just throw them away." "Thank you for your concern, Aunt Carol," I said, and hung up. Next was Uncle Mark, my father's brother. "Gianna, Mark, listen, your father is a proud man. You've embarrassed him. Whatever point you were trying to make, you made it, but you took the TV and the washer. That's childish. Family is about helping each other. You have a good job. They don't. It's that simple. Do the right thing." Click. I hung up mid-sentence, after the third call, from a cousin I had not seen since high school. I developed a new reflex. The moment I heard the phrase, "family is about helping," or "you have a duty," I simply disconnected the call. My old life was trying to pull me back, using the tendrils of shared blood and manufactured guilt. I was performing my own kind of data cleanup. I was blocking the numbers. I was sanitizing the system. 2 weeks later, I ran into them. I was at the grocery store in my new neighborhood, a bright, clean place that sold organic vegetables. I was in the cereal aisle, comparing fiber content, and I heard her voice. "I mean, it's just humiliating. I had to use a laundromat. A laundromat, like some college kid." I turned, Tessa, and, looming behind her, Bryce. They both looked terrible. Their Hawaiian tans had faded to a sallow yellow. Tessa's expensive highlights were growing out. Bryce looked thinner, his anger replaced with a kind of dull, petulant exhaustion. They were pushing a cart that contained a frozen pizza, a 2-liter bottle of soda, and a bag of generic brand chips. Tessa saw me. Her eyes narrowed. You're actually shopping like nothing happened." "Hello, Tessa, Bryce," I said. I turned back to the cereal. "No, you don't get to do that," she snapped, moving to block my path. "You don't get to just walk away. Mom is a wreck. The house is a disaster. You have to fix this." "Fix what?" "You have to turn the internet back on," she said, her voice rising. "Bryce can't even apply for jobs. You took the router. Who does that?" I looked at Bryce. He was staring at his shoes, the very picture of a 32-year-old victim. "He can't apply for jobs," I repeated, my voice flat. "No," Tessa said. "He's been trying, but you cut him off. You are actively trying to ruin us." I looked at my older brother. "Bryce?" "The Grayford Public Library is 1 mile from the house. They have free, high-speed internet, and a now hiring sign in the window for a part-time shelf. The coffee shop at the corner has free Wi-Fi, too. They're also hiring baristas." Bryce flinched. Tessa looked at me, her mouth open, speechless with rage. "That's not the point," she finally managed. "It's about respect you owe us." "I paid my debts," I said. I put my box of cereal in my basket. You should look into getting a job, too. Tessa, paying for your own things feels good. You might like it. I pushed my cart past them. I walked to the checkout, paid for my groceries, and left. I did not look back to see if they were following me. That weekend was my first truly free weekend. It was January. The city was cold, but my new apartment was warm. On Saturday, I slept until 10 a.m. I went to a matinee movie, by myself. I bought a large popcorn and did not have to share it. I walked for 2 hours along the river, listening to a podcast about economic history. On Sunday, I signed up for a beginner's photography workshop. I spent 4 hours learning about aperture and light. It was difficult and technical, and I loved it. My apartment began to look less like a sterile rental unit and more like a home. My home. I bought plants, real ones, and a book on how to keep them alive. I bought bookshelves and filled them with my own books, not the dusty, unread hardcovers my parents used for decoration. I bought a simple canvas and some acrylic paints, and I painted a terrible, abstract skyline of the river view. I hung it on the wall. It was mine. On the 1st of February, I sat down at my laptop. My paycheck had been deposited. I opened my personal finance spreadsheet. It was no longer a grim ledger of family debt. It was a forecast. I had a line item, G. Anderson Emergency Fund. I opened my bank account. I typed in the amount, $2,000. The money that used to go to Victor and Elaine's mortgage, the money that had bought Tessa's sorority dues and Bryce's server time. I transferred it from checking to savings. I clicked back to my spreadsheet. I typed in the new balance, the cell that tracked my progress toward a 6-month emergency fund, a goal I had not been able to even start for 4 years, turned from red to a pale, beautiful green. I smiled. It was the best feeling in the world. I added a new tab to the spreadsheet, condo down payment. I set a goal. I could own my own place, not rent, but own. Free and clear. I ran the numbers. With my new savings rate, I could have a down payment in 12 to 18 months. My work was thriving, too. The focus I brought back to my job, now that my mind was not being consumed by the domestic black hole, was palpable. I signed up for an advanced certification course offered by my bank, Forensic Accounting and Fraudulent Credit Analysis. It was for my job, to help me build better risk models. But it was also for my life. I was learning, in technical, precise detail, how to spot a lie, how to read the fine print, how to protect my assets from bad actors. The rumors, of course, continued. I heard from Harper that the family narrative, the one being spread by my mother, was that I was ungrateful, that I was cold and obsessed with money, that I had abandoned the people who had raised me, all for a few $1,000s. I sat on my new sofa, in my warm apartment, looking at my terrible painting. I sipped my coffee, made in my simple machine. They could call me ungrateful. It was fine. I had just stopped being the family bank. The bank was closed, the vault was sealed, and for the first time, I was the only one with the key. The letter that arrived at my apartment was not a plea. It was an attack. It was delivered by a professional process server who met me in the lobby of my secure building, a man who would not make eye contact. "Gianna Anderson," he asked. I nodded. He handed me the thick manila envelope and left. I sat at my new dining table, the one I had assembled myself, and read the document. Victor Anderson and Elaine Anderson via Gianna Anderson. They were suing me. They were demanding $30,000. The claims were a work of fiction. Willful and malicious theft of community property, intentional infliction of emotional distress, abandonment of familial support obligations. The $30,000 was, according to their math, the replacement value of their appliances, plus punitive damages for the trauma of returning to a dark, quiet house, the trauma of having their vacation cut short by reality. I read it twice. My heart did not pound. My hands did not shake. This was not an emotional document. It was a data file, and it was full of errors. I did not call my parents. I did not call Harper. I opened my laptop and searched for best civil litigators, Grayford. I was not looking for a family therapist. I was looking for a weapon, the name that came up most often, with reviews citing ruthless efficiency and no nonsense, was Valerie Knox. Her office was downtown, in one of the steel and glass towers that overlooked the river from the opposite side. I had an appointment the next afternoon. Valerie Knox's office was Spartan. No family photos, no diplomas on the wall, just a large, clean desk and two unforgiving chairs. She wore a dark gray suit that looked like it cost more than my first car. She did not offer me coffee. "You're the data scientist," she said as I sat. "You said on the phone you had documentation." I did not say hello. I placed the 1-inch white binder on her desk, the one the police officers had reviewed. "This is the file," I said. She opened it. For 20 minutes, the only sound in the room was the quiet shh of paper turning. She did not skim. She absorbed. She read every receipt. She cross-referenced the serial numbers. She followed the 48 bank transfers, the $2,000, month after month, culminating in the $96,000 total. She read the copy of the police report I had included, the one where the officers concluded, "No crime committed." Finally, she closed the binder. She leaned back in her chair, pressing her fingertips together. A very small, very cold smile touched the corner of her mouth. "Ms. Anderson," she said, "your family is exceptionally stupid. They are accustomed to getting their way," I replied. "They are suing you for the replacement value of items you legally own," she continued, as if I had not spoken. "They are suing you for emotional distress for leaving a house you were paying for, after they abandoned you on Christmas Eve to go to Hawaii. They have not only handed us a defense, they have handed us a countersuit for frivolous litigation. They are going to shoot themselves in the foot, repeatedly, and I'm going to make sure they pay my fee when they do. You'll take the case. I will win this case," Valerie stated. "Go home. Do not contact them. Do not answer any calls. Forward any mail to me. I will handle it." The preliminary hearing was set for a date 3 weeks later. It was not a full trial, just a hearing for the judge to determine if their lawsuit had any merit whatsoever. I walked into the small, drab courtroom. Valerie was already there, tapping on her tablet. My family was on the other side, huddled together: Victor, Elaine, Bryce, and Tessa. They had brought their own lawyer, a rumpled man who looked like he specialized in personal injury. My mother, Elaine, was dressed in black, a tissue clutched in her hand, as if she were in mourning. My father stared at me, his face a mask of righteous indignation. Their lawyer spoke first. His argument was pure theater. He spoke of the sanctity of the family bond. He used the phrase filial piety. He painted a picture of two aging, loving parents who had been raided and abandoned by a cold and ungrateful child. "This is not about a refrigerator, Your Honor," he said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "This is about duty. It is about the fundamental moral fabric of a family, a fabric Gianna Anderson tore apart for greed." The judge, a sharp-eyed woman who looked like she had heard every lie ever told, stared at him. "Counselor, moral fabric is not a legal standard. Do you have any evidence that a crime was committed?" "The crime, Your Honor, is one of the heart." Valerie Knox stood up. "Your Honor, we do have evidence. We will not be discussing the heart. We will be discussing the receipts." She placed the white binder on the podium. The thud was loud in the quiet room. "Mr. Peterson is arguing for family duty. Let's look at the numbers. Tab A, itemized receipts, credit card statements, and serialized warranty registrations for every single item removed from the home. All are in the name of my client, Gianna Anderson." She turned the page. Tab B, bank statements documenting 48 consecutive months of direct deposit mortgage payments from my client to the plaintiff's mortgage holder. The total is $96,000. This is not help. This is not rent. This was my client single-handedly paying their mortgage. The duty in this family, it seems, has been a one-way street. The judge held up her hand. She looked over her glasses, not at me, but at my father. "Mr. Anderson, is this accurate? Did your daughter pay $2,000 a month for your mortgage for the last 4 years? My father's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, that was a private family arrangement. It is a yes or no question. The judge snapped. Mr. Anderson. Victor's face was turning a deep, blotchy red. Yes, but... No buts, the judge said. And during this time, did your other adult children contribute financially? Mr. Bryce Anderson, Bryce, sitting behind my parents, sank lower in his seat. He was working on a startup, my father mumbled. So, no, the judge said. And Ms. Tessa Anderson. She is a full-time student, my mother interrupted, her voice shrill. At Northfield Private College. A very expensive school, the judge observed. Who pays her tuition? The $35,000 a year. My father was silent. You do, the judge stated. So, let me summarize. You, the plaintiffs, are suing the one child who was financially supporting this family. You are suing her for $30,000 in emotional distress because she stopped paying your mortgage and took her own television with her. A television, I see from the plaintiff's own complaint, that your unemployed son, Bryce, was the primary user of... She looked at Bryce. Mr. Anderson, are you currently employed? I am between opportunities, Bryce said, his voice barely a whisper. The judge closed the file. The sound was like a trap springing. This is the most frivolous, vindictive, and frankly pathetic lawsuit I've seen this year. It is an abuse of the court's time and a clear attempt to harass the defendant. Case dismissed, with prejudice. Furthermore, plaintiffs are ordered to pay all of defendants' associated court costs and legal fees. We are done here. My mother let out a small shriek. Bryce actually stood up and yelled. This is garbage. Your Honor, Valerie Knox said, her voice cutting through the noise. One final matter. The judge, already standing, paused. Ms. Knox. Given the plaintiff's behavior, including the police-documented harassment at my client's new residence and this outburst in court, we are filing a petition for a temporary order of protection against harassment. The blood drained from my father's face. You can't do that. My mother gasped. I just did, Valerie said. The judge looked at my family, her disgust plain. Temporary order is granted. A full hearing will be set. Until that time, Victor, Elaine, Bryce, and Tessa Anderson, you are to have no contact with Ms. Gianna Anderson. No calls, no texts, no emails. You will not come within 100 yards of her person, her residence, or her place of employment. Do you understand me? They were silent, stunned. We walked out of the courtroom. Valerie was already on her phone, confirming her next appointment. I walked past the small, shattered cluster of my family. As I passed, I saw Nolan. He had been in the back row the entire time, invisible. He had not been named in the suit. He was just a witness. He looked at me. His face was pale. He took a half-step toward me, as if to speak. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Bryce saw it. He grabbed Nolan's shoulder. Nolan, come on. Nolan flinched. He looked at me, then at my mother, who was now openly sobbing. He lowered his head and turned, following them down the hallway. He had remained silent. I felt no joy. I felt no triumph. I just felt finished. It was the feeling of closing a long, complex, and deeply flawed project. When I got home to my quiet apartment, I did not pour a drink to celebrate. I opened my laptop. I went to my master spreadsheet. I found the tab labeled Family and the row I had created for Lawsuit in the status column. I typed one word, closed. The temporary restraining order worked. The calls, the texts, the ambient harassment from my extended family, it all stopped. The silence was absolute. My life settled into a new, predictable rhythm. Work, the fraud analytics course, the photography class, the quiet evenings in my apartment overlooking the river. My 6-month emergency fund was now 80% complete. I was actively vetting mortgage brokers for my condo pre-approval. It was a Tuesday evening in March when the letter arrived. My name was on it, but it was addressed to the Riverbend Heights house. The post office, executing my change of address, had forwarded it. It was not junk mail. It was from the bank that held my parents' mortgage, the one I had paid $96,000 to. I assumed it was a year-end tax statement or some other residual paperwork. I opened it. It was not a tax statement. It was a statement for a home equity line of credit, a HELOC in the name of Victor Anderson, Elaine Anderson, and Gianna Anderson. I stared at the paper. I had never applied for a HELOC. I, more than anyone, knew the dangers of borrowing against an asset, especially one as unstable as that house. My eyes scanned the details. The line of credit was for $50,000. The entire amount had been drawn in a single transaction. On October 15th, 3 months ago, I felt the air in the room become thin and sharp. This was not a mistake. This was something else. I called the bank's automated line. I entered my Social Security number, which they had. I entered the account number. I requested the original loan documentation because I was listed as a primary account holder. The system complied. The documents arrived in my email inbox as a secured PDF 5 minutes later. I opened the file, and there it was. Page 24, the signature page. My name, Gianna Anderson. It was not my signature. My heart did not pound. My breathing did not quicken. A switch flipped in my brain. The daughter was gone, and the forensic analyst took her place. I printed the page. The signature was good. It was very good. It was the signature of someone who had seen me sign my name 1,000 times on birthday cards and school permission slips. The G was looped. The A's were sharp, but the I was dotted with a small circle. A habit my mother always had. I never did that. My I was a slash. It was my mother's handwriting, disguised as mine. I looked at the date of execution. October 15th, notarized. I opened my work calendar, my travel logs. October 15th, I was in Chicago. I had been the keynote speaker at a Northstone Meridian risk management seminar. I pulled the receipts from my corporate expense report, my flight to O'Hare, my hotel bill, my badge for the conference. I had a verifiable, ironclad alibi. I was not even in the state. I looked at the notary's signature. Janine Peters. I knew that name. Janine Peters was my mother's friend from the tennis club. The data points were connecting. I looked back at the HELOC statement. The $50,000 draw. Where did it go? It was not disbursed as cash. It was a wire transfer. To account 0045881. At a different bank. The account title. The Victor Elaine 35th Anniversary Fund. They had become arrogant. They had put it all in writing. This was no longer a domestic dispute. This was fraud. This was identity theft. I pulled out my phone and accessed the bank's website for the anniversary fund. I did not have the password, but I had my mother's habits. I tried her birthday. Denied. I tried Bryce Tessa Nolan. Denied. I tried Hawaii Dreaming. Access granted. I was in. I was looking at their private account. The ledger was pristine. One deposit $50,000 on October 15th, and then the debits. October 18th. A charge to a luxury travel agency, the amount $22,500. October 20th. A wire transfer, listed as jewelry appraisal. October 22nd. A deposit, $10,000. They had sold my grandmother's jewelry. Jewelry my mother had always promised would be mine and Tessa's. She had sold it to pad the fund. November 1st. A charge from Pacific Resorts International. The memo, deposit. Kahala Resort, 5 guests. They had used the equity in the house that I was paying for, leveraged with my forged signature, to fund the Hawaiian vacation where they had intentionally abandoned me. This was the O moment, the cold, precise, undeniable moment that the last flicker of familial obligation died. I did not get angry. I got organized. First, I scanned every single page. The HELOC statement, the forged signature, my travel itinerary, the anniversary fund statement, the Hawaii resort charge. I compiled it all into a single, password-protected PDF. I did not call my parents. The restraining order was still in effect. I emailed the file to one person, Valerie Knox. The subject line was simple: fraud. Valerie's reply came in 7 minutes. My office, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Do not speak to the bank. Do not speak to your family. Do not speak to anyone. I will handle the bank. Second, I became a fortress. I logged into my accounts with all 3 major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. I placed an immediate, indefinite fraud alert and a full credit freeze on my file. No one would ever open so much as a store card in my name again. Third, I picked up my phone, I activated the recording app, I dialed the number for Janine Peters, the notary. She answered, her voice breezy. Hello? Janine? Hi, it's Gianna Anderson, Elaine's daughter. Oh, Gianna. Honey, what a surprise. I haven't heard from you I'm reviewing some bank documents, and I just had a quick question about your notary stamp. I have a document here from October 15th, a HELOC application. I'm just trying to verify it, as I was in Chicago that day. The line went completely silent. I heard a small cough. Oh, she said, her voice suddenly tight. Well, your mother, Elaine, she brought the papers over. She said you were traveling for work and had already signed them, that you just needed the stamp to make it official before the deadline. She was in a terrible rush. I stamped the pack for her, as a favor. So you notarized my signature without me being physically present. Well, Elaine said it was fine. She said you knew. Thank you, Janine. You've been very helpful. I hung up. I saved the audio file and emailed it to Valerie. The meeting with Valerie was not a discussion. It was a war room briefing. The bank has already launched an internal fraud investigation, she said, her voice like ice. The notary's confession is grounds for disbarment and criminal charges. The forgery is blatant. This is a federal crime. Gianna, wire fraud, identity theft. This is not a civil suit anymore. They are facing prison. I stared at the tabletop. Prison, Victor, Elaine. What about Nolan? I asked. What about him? He's 21. He's at the community college. If they are indicted, he will be destroyed. His name, his future. He will be the son of 2 convicted felons. He's the only one who wasn't part of it. The only one who ever put $1 toward groceries. Valerie watched me. You are considering letting them get away with this? No, I said, my voice hard. I am not, but I want to choose the weapon. No criminal charges. Not yet. I want a civil suit. I want you to take this evidence to the bank's fraud department and to my parents' lawyer. I want the HELOC voided from my name and my credit record expunged. I want damages for the fraudulent credit inquiry, and I want this settled, quietly and absolutely, or I will hand the file to the district attorney. I want to end them. Valerie, I do not want to incarcerate them. Not if it takes Nolan down, too. Valerie stared at me for a long time. You are more merciful than I am, but you are the client. I will prepare the civil complaint. But the consequences, I learned, did not wait for the courts. The bank's internal fraud investigation was swift. They contacted my father's employer, another bank in the city, as a professional reference. In doing so, they discovered that my father had used his work email and his company's internal servers to process and transmit the fraudulent loan documents. Victor was not arrested. He was called into his managing director's office and given 2 options: be fired for cause, for gross misconduct and bank fraud, or take voluntary early retirement, effective immediately, with a forfeiture of his unvested pension. He was out of a job by the end of the week. The anniversary fund was frozen, pending the fraud claim. This meant the money source was dry. The first casualty was Tessa. With Victor's income gone and the HELOC money locked, the spring semester tuition for Northfield Private College went unpaid. She was academically dismissed. 2 weeks later, I heard through my aunt before I blocked her number that Tessa was now enrolled at Grayford Community College, taking remedial math. And Bryce, he had launched his new venture, a Web3 NFT startup. According to his social media, he was seeking angel investors. But with the family name now attached to a major bank fraud investigation and Victor unemployed, no one would invest. His startup was dead on arrival. One evening, my new phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I am sorry I was silent. It was not signed. It did not need to be. I knew it was Nolan. I stared at the message. The first contact from my family in 2 months that was not an attack. I did not reply. But I saved his number in my contacts, and on my old phone, I found his name, and I removed the block. It was a small gesture. A single, encrypted data packet, sent into the void, a possibility, the civil suit, built on the bedrock of fraud, changed the dynamic entirely. The restraining order had built a wall. The fraud allegation was a battering ram, their lawyer. The rumpled man who had argued about filial piety contacted Valerie. His tone, Valerie reported, was no longer theatrical. It was the flat, exhausted sound of a man holding a losing hand. He called this morning, Valerie said, her voice crisp over the phone. They are concerned about the criminal implications. They're scared, I clarified. They're terrified, she corrected. They're willing to discuss a settlement. They made an opening offer. I waited. They proposed to privately apologize for the misunderstanding. In exchange, you will drop the civil suit, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and this is the important part, agree that the HELOC matter is closed, with no report filed to the authorities. And the money, I asked. They've offered to pay a small portion of your inconvenience, Valerie said. I could hear the disgust in her voice. $5,000. I almost laughed. They forged my name on a $50,000 loan, lost my father his job, and they're offering $5,000. It was an insult, and I told him as much, Valerie said. I told him we would see them at the criminal hearing. He called back 20 minutes later, asking for our terms. I'm not changing my mind. Valerie, I don't want them in prison. I want this over. I know, she said. So I drafted terms that are not punitive, but absolute. They are non-negotiable. I went to her office that afternoon to review the counteroffer. It was a masterpiece of legal precision. It had 3 conditions. 1, Valerie said, ticking a finger. Financial restitution. They will pay, in full, all of my legal fees. They will also pay for any and all costs associated with repairing your credit, including a 5-year subscription to a premium credit monitoring service. Finally, they will pay a flat sum of $10,000 for damages. This is not negotiable. This is a simple repayment of debt. 2, she continued. This is the one they will hate. They will provide a written, notarized confession, signed by both Victor and Elaine, detailing the fraudulent HELOC application, the forgery of your signature, and the date and method of the act. This document will not be filed with the court. It will be delivered to me, and I will hold it in trust for you. It is your insurance policy. If they ever so much as breathe in your direction again, you have a signed confession of a federal crime. And 3, a permanent legally binding no-contact order, not temporary, a 2-year renewable injunction. No calls, no texts, no emails, no letters, no contacting you through third parties. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins, no showing up at your apartment or your place of work. Absolute 0 contact. I read the document. It was perfect. They will fight this, I said. They will try, Valerie replied. But they have no ammunition. They are standing in a field of gasoline, and we are holding the only match. Send the offer. The counteroffer detonated the expected panic. The first attempt to bypass the armor came from my mother. She called Valerie's office directly. The receptionist, who had been briefed, patched her through to Valerie. She wanted to talk to you. Mother to daughter. Valerie relayed to me later, her voice dry. She said this was a family matter, a women's matter, and that I, as a lawyer, was fanning the flames and poisoning her child's mind. She cried. She said she just wanted to hear my voice. What did you say? I informed her that I am not her child's mind. I am her child's legal counsel. I also informed her that if she ever contacted my office again directly, I would file a motion for contempt for violating the temporary restraining order. She called me a heartless bitch. I said, "You have my terms," and I hung up. The next attempt was from my father. He was more foolish. He showed up at Valerie's building, violating the TRO entirely. He cornered her in the lobby. He did not yell. He did not cry. He tried to use the moral card. He told me I was destroying a man's life, Valerie recounted, looking bored. That this vendetta of mine was unbecoming. He said I didn't understand what it meant to provide for a family, and that I was helping you shirk your God-given duty. What did you do? Valerie almost smiled. I didn't argue. I took out my phone. I opened the audio file from the notary, Janine Peters, admitting she committed a felony as a favor. I played the first 10 seconds of it for him, right there in the lobby. Then I pulled up the PDF of the graphologist's report, the one that proved, with mathematical certainty, that Elaine had forged his daughter's signature. I held the phone up to his face. I told him, she said, we are not discussing duty, we are discussing wire fraud and conspiracy. You have 24 hours to accept the terms, or this file goes to the district attorney, and if you ever violate the restraining order by coming near me or my client again, I will have you arrested. She said his face went white. He was in the elevator before I finished the sentence. Their lawyer called Valerie 3 hours later. They've agreed, she told me. All 3 conditions, the money, the 2-year no contact, and the confession. They have one request. What? They want the settlement to be sealed, confidential. They are terrified of losing face in the community. I don't care about their face, I said. I just care about the terms. Good. We'll grant confidentiality on the condition of immediate and absolute compliance. The check will be in escrow by Friday. While the war was ending, my life was beginning. At Northstone Meridian, my fraud analytics course had concluded. My final project, a new model for predicting internal fraud based on network access logs, had caught the attention of the executive board. I was called into my managing director's office. I was promoted. Lead analyst, consumer risk modeling, he said. It comes with a team of 4 and a 20% salary increase. Congratulations. Gianna, you've earned it. I walked out of his office, my mind calculating the new numbers, my condo timeline. It was no longer 12 to 18 months. It was 6, that weekend. I went to an open house. It was a corner unit in a new building on the west side of the river. It was bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows, and it had a balcony. I stood out there, high above the city, and watched the sun hit the water. I imagined drinking my morning coffee out here, the air cold, my phone silent. It was not a fantasy, it was a plan. Harper came over that night to celebrate my promotion. She brought a gift. It was a large, framed canvas, an abstract painting with deep blues and a single, bright rectangle of yellow and white. It's by a local artist, she said, as I held it. I call it The Bright Door. I hung it in my living room, opposite the window. It was the first piece of real art I had ever owned. The call from Nolan came 2 days later. He used the new number I had saved, the one from his sorry text. Gianna, it's me. Can we talk? Not on the phone, in person. Please, just 10 minutes. I felt the old familiar knot of obligation. But it was different now. It was weaker. This was not a demand. It was a plea. A coffee shop, I said. On my side of the river, tomorrow, 10 a.m. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a small table in the back, twisting a napkin into shreds. He looked thin, and he was wearing a Grayford Community College sweatshirt. Thank you for coming, he mumbled. I just sat, my coat still on. I did not order anything. I have to, I have to tell you, he started, not looking at me. I knew, before the trip, I knew you were being left behind. I said nothing. I just waited. I was in Dad's office, he said, his voice cracking, looking for a stapler for a paper. The travel itinerary was on the printer. I picked it up. It listed the passengers, 5 of them, Dad, Mom, Bryce, Tessa, and me, not you, 5 tickets, not 6. He looked at me, his eyes wet. I asked Mom about it. I said, "What about Gianna? Isn't she coming?" "And what did she say?" I asked. My voice was quiet, clinical. She told me I had to be quiet. She said you wanted to stay home, that you had to work, and that you were happy to do it, to save the money. She said not to mention it to you, because it would make you feel bad about missing out. He dropped the shredded napkin. I knew it was a lie. Gianna, I knew you weren't on that project anymore. I saw you in the kitchen the day before, and you looked tired. I knew, and I didn't say anything. He let out a shaky breath. I was a coward. I wanted to go. I wanted the vacation, and I stayed silent. I let them do it to you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He was crying now, his shoulders shaking, the 21-year-old boy who had just confessed his complicity. I looked at him, the only one who had ever offered $1 for groceries, the only one now offering the truth. I felt a flicker of something, a deep, ancient sadness, but it was not forgiveness. It was not anger. It was just an ending. I stood up. He looked up at me, his face desperate. "You are young," I said, my voice soft, but firm. "But you are not a child anymore. Next time, Nolan, make the right choice." I put a $5 bill on the table for his coffee, and I walked out. That night, I could not sleep. I went to the box in my closet, the one with my old life in it. I pulled out a journal, one from 4 years ago. I found the entry from the day I agreed to pay the $2,000. My handwriting was hopeful, looping. "It's just temporary. They're my family. It's the right thing to do. It will all be worth it." I stared at the words of the woman I used to be, the woman who thought she could buy her family's love and respect for $2,000 a month. I felt a wave of profound pity for her. I wanted to tell her to run. I closed the journal. I did not rip out the page. I did not burn it. I put it back in the box. I had paid her debt, in full. I had paid $96,000 and a lifetime of obligation. I could finally forgive her for staying so long. I sat at my laptop. There was one new email. It was from Valerie. "It is done. The confession is signed, notarized, and in my office safe. The bank has officially voided the HELOC from your credit file, and the check for damages is in escrow. The final hearing to make the no-contact order permanent is set for next Tuesday. Be there. Bring yourself. That's all you'll need." The final hearing was not a trial. It was a formality, a confirmation of surrender. My family was already there when Valerie and I arrived. They were not huddled together this time. They sat apart, a constellation of resentment. Victor, his face gray and aged, stared at the floor. Elaine, no longer in mourning black, wore a beige cardigan and looked small and brittle. Bryce vibrated with a useless, impotent anger. Nolan sat in the back row, separate from them, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. "All rise," the bailiff said. The judge entered and took her seat. She looked at the file, then at Valerie. "Ms. Knox, I see the parties have reached a settlement in the civil matter of Anderson Vaz. Anderson, pending this hearing." "We have, Your Honor," Valerie said, standing. "And we are here today to finalize the petition for a permanent restraining order. Before I rule, I want the evidence presented for the record, to ensure the agreement we are ratifying is neither frivolous nor coerced." "Thank you, Your Honor," Valerie said. She did not look at my family. She looked only at the judge. "The facts are as follows. The defendants, Victor and Elaine Anderson, in violation of federal law, conspired to commit wire fraud and identity theft against the plaintiff, Gianna Anderson, She placed a file on the podium. Fact 1. On October 15th, the defendants applied for a $50,000 home equity line of credit using the plaintiff's name, credit, and forged signature without her knowledge or consent. Fact 2. The plaintiff has provided a verified travel itinerary, corporate expense reports, and conference credentials proving that on the date of the forgery, she was not in the state of Grayford. She was in Chicago, Illinois. Fact 3. We have a notarized graphologist's report confirming the signature of Gianna Anderson is a forgery, consistent with the handwriting of the defendant, Elaine Anderson. Fact 4. We have a sworn audio recording from the notary, Ms. Janine Peters, admitting she notarized the signature without the plaintiff present, as a personal favor to the defendants. And Fact 5, Valerie said, her voice dropping. We have the bank statements from the account where the fraudulent $50,000 loan was deposited, the Anniversary Fund. This fund was used to purchase, among other things, a $22,000 vacation to a resort in Hawaii, a trip for 5 passengers, which intentionally excluded the plaintiff, who was, at the time, still paying the mortgage on the very house they had borrowed against. A low, strangled sound came from my mother. The judge looked at Elaine. Her voice was not unkind, but it was steel. Mrs. Anderson, you are under oath. You have signed the civil agreement, which includes a confession. But I want to hear it in this court. Did you sign your daughter's name to that loan application? My mother's hands were shaking. She looked at Victor, but he would not look at her. He just stared at his lap. Elaine, the judge pressed. Yes, she whispered. Her voice was thin, a dry leaf scraping the floor. Yes, I signed it. You knew it was a crime, the judge stated. It was for the family, my mother burst out, the whisper turning into a desperate plea. We needed it. The house? Victor. We had to keep things together. She had the money. She was family. It was for the family. You stole your daughter's identity for the family, the judge repeated. The words hung in the air, damning and small. She looked at my silent father. And you, Mr. Anderson, you knew. You let her. You benefited. Victor closed his eyes. His silence was his answer. The judge's gavel came down. Not a loud crack, but a flat, final thud. The judgment of this court is as follows, she declared. The civil settlement is ratified. The $50,000 home equity line of credit is declared null and void as it pertains to Ms. Gianna Anderson. The plaintiffs, Victor and Elaine Anderson, are bound by the terms of the settlement to pay all damages, restitution, and legal fees, the funds for which are confirmed to be in escrow. She looked at them, her eyes cold. Furthermore, this court grants a permanent 2-year or 24-month no-contact order. Victor, Elaine, and Bryce Anderson, you are prohibited from contacting Gianna Anderson by any means. You will not come within 100 yards of her person, her residence, or her place of employment. Any violation, no matter how small, will result in your immediate arrest. She leaned forward. I want to make one final point. The only reason this court is not forwarding this file, including the notarized confession and the audio recording, to the district attorney for criminal prosecution is the explicit request of the plaintiff, Ms. Anderson. She has chosen mercy. I suggest you do not mistake that for weakness. You have committed a serious, life-altering crime. This court is warning you, do not test her, or me, again. We are adjourned. As the judge stood, the spell broke. Bryce shot to his feet. This is garbage, he roared, his face purple. She was family. She owed us. She's destroying this family just for money. The bailiff moved, his hand on his radio. Sir, sit down. But before the officer could reach him, Nolan was up. He moved from the back row, grabbed his brother's arm, and yanked him back into the seat. Bryce, shut up, he hissed. It's over. Bryce stared at his younger brother, stunned. And for the first time in his life, he did as he was told. Valerie touched my elbow. "Let's go. It's done." We walked out. I did not look back. I did not need to. The civil settlement, their lawyer's final, desperate act of compliance, was already complete. We were in the bright, sterile hallway when my new phone vibrated. I looked at the screen. It was not my family. It was my mortgage broker, the one for my condo. I answered. "Hello? Gianna, it's Mark. From the bank. I have incredible news. That fraudulent HELOC that's been plaguing your credit file. It's gone. The bank officially expunged it this morning. The underwriters reviewed your final file, and your loan is officially approved. Congratulations, Ms. Anderson. You are a homeowner." I leaned against the wall. The very act of fraud that was meant to tie me to them, the one that had almost destroyed my credit and my chances of a future, was the very thing that had finalized my liberation. Valerie looked at me, a rare, small smile on her face. "Good news?" "It's approved," I said, my voice hoarse. "My condo, it's approved." "Well done, Ms. Anderson," she said. She shook my hand. "You're free. My bill has already been paid by the settlement." She turned and walked away. That evening, I was not in my rental apartment. I was on the balcony of my new condo. I had closed 3 days later. The view of the river was vast, the sunset a smear of orange and purple. The air was cold, but I did not feel it. I held a simple glass of wine. My phone was on the table next to me. Silent. It had not rung all day. I opened my new laptop. I started a new email. I did not type in an address. I just wrote the words I needed to say. "I am not your asset. I am not your safety net. I am not your rainy day fund. I am not your retirement plan. I am not your bank." I read the words. I took a sip of wine. Then I highlighted the text and hit delete. I did not need to send it. The account was closed. A few days later, checking my new mailbox in the lobby, I found a small, plain white envelope, no return address. Inside was a simple card, not a sorry card, just a blank one. Inside, in Nolan's familiar, hesitant handwriting, were 5 words. "I am sorry. I will do better." It was not signed. He had not included his number. It was not a request for a relationship. It was just an acknowledgement. I did not throw it away. I put it in the drawer of my new desk. The next day, I installed a new video doorbell, not the old one, which had been a tool for surveillance against others. This one was just for me. This one was to see who was bringing me packages, to buzz in my friends. That night, I locked my door. The 3 deadbolts engaged with a heavy, satisfying thunk. I leaned my back against the solid wood. The silence in my home was profound. It was not the silence of an empty, cold house on Christmas Eve. It was not loneliness. It was the sound of a ledger, balanced. It was the sound of an asset, secured. It was the sound of freedom, fully paid for and wholly owned. My justice had not come from a dramatic courtroom confession. It had come from receipts, from warranties, from bank statements and spreadsheets. It had come from a woman who had finally stopped paying to be loved and had instead invested in herself. I went to my new, organized closet. I took out the storage box that held the white binder and the original accordion file. I picked up my label maker. I typed 2 words. Family completed. I printed the label, peeled the back, and pressed it onto the side of the box. I pushed the box into the far back corner of the closet. I closed the door. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I would love to connect and share thoughts with you. Please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like the video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.